Come to me. Come to me.
Thank you both for your performances in this. It is incredible.
Good to see you again. We had a little Q&A together.
We did have a Q&A together, girl, but we got to do this for the masses now. And I want to say to the same thing I said then. You are so good in this.
Thank you.
The film really like drives through your eyes. Talk about when Robert told you, we're going to do a Nosferatu, but it's going to be different. She's not going to be a damsel. This is going to be her story.
Well, he didn't say that to me. Basically, I read the script. I mean, this came to me in a kind of very classic way. Like, my agents called me and they were like, Robert Eggers is making this Nosferatu, like, you're gonna audition for it, like, in 2 days or something. And I got to read the script, which was very cool, because a lot of times you don't get to read the script.
You get, like, 2 pages of it.
Yeah, exactly, and you're kind of, like, guessing. But I got to read the script for this one, which I was infinitely grateful for. And that was, like, kind of jumped off the page, just, like, how central Ellen's perspective was going to be, and how complex she was. It was all there on the page, which again is quite rare as well. And so it was kind of like a very full jumping off point that I had for that. But I was so excited. I love this tale in general, and to get to approach it from that perspective, I think it just offers so much more depth and complexity to the story.
Yeah, and it's no easy feat. They really ask you both to do a lot, but particularly you. And you're by her side in a lot of that. And Robert said this really great thing when I talked to him. If it not for what you and Aaron are doing in this, everything that happens with Lily and Nick doesn't hit quite as home. So talk a little bit about that, because he said he was so grateful to you to being a part of this role, because it took an actor of your caliber to get that right, even though it is like a smaller part.
Yeah, Aaron and Anna and Friedrich needed to be there to be the light so that the darkness hits. You always have to have that sort of, the yin to that yang, I guess.
What was that like, being the sort of, because again, it's not a stationary place. I mean, you're really going through it, from the rats and the terror and the torment. How did you stay centered with that?
I loved it, and the thing about Rob, I'll say, is he doesn't waste anything. No matter what aspect of his filmmaking you're looking at, everything is intentional, nothing is pointed at. And yeah, in terms of Anna, it's exactly the same. Like, she's there to support her friend. She has an incredible arc. Yeah. All those characters, no matter how small, how big, have these incredible arcs. So, yeah, there's a lot of complexity in Anna that I absolutely adored. You know, she has to be there for her friend despite her beliefs, and she has to put those to one side and decide to love her friend through everything unconditionally. And that was a really nice, very satisfying thing to play for me. So I loved it.
I mean, it's so much deeper than this, but on a certain level, it really is just this. I say this is for the girls that want to get kidnapped by the monster a little bit. Like, I
know what you mean.
I stand by what I say. And that is a huge, I think, like, heartbeat underneath some of the most terrifying and, like, heightened moments of this. Talk about how you and Robert, like, if it was just like, hey, you knew this was what it needed and you brought it, or were there things that he could tweak as far as that on set? Because that desire, it's there in everything.
It is, yeah. I mean, and that, again, like, that's another thing that was palpable on the page. I mean, it's the script was so beautiful and so detailed and so romantic. All of those themes were there on the page, which I think is quite rare as well. And then we talked about it a little bit in rehearsal and everything, and it was clear to me from the beginning, and from what Rob was saying to me, that, like, it's a love story with Count Orlok as much as it is with her husband. There's a real love triangle there, and especially, like, my scenes with Bill. Rob wanted there to be, like, a palpable sensuality between the two characters, and I think that serves the story as well, because it makes things so much scarier. It's so much scarier to think that there is, like, a yearning going from, really between the two of them, rather than just, like, this woman who's kind of, like, chased down by this, like, scary demon that she, like, hates. She carries so much darkness within her, and I think that he, in a way, is, like, the manifestation of that darkness. And so she's pulled towards him for a reason. And she calls out to him, in the beginning. Somebody asked me in an interview recently, like, how do you think he sees her? And I thought that was really interesting, because I kind of hadn't thought about it before. But I was like, it's cool to think about how, nobody calls for him. Nobody wants that, but she does. She does. She has that, like, darkness within her, and so she calls out to him. And so there's there's a mutual yearning there that I think makes the story so much more engaging and so much scarier.
Yeah. The way I put it in my head is he's got the disease and you are definitely the antidote. Like, it is very that. It is very that. I also love that the world around y'all is so built out. Like, it is so vivid. It is so, like, arresting and haunting. And I feel like it's, like, no acting required. But the costumes, like, you're in it physically. I'd love for you to talk about how that helped you transform into this very committed time period when women just walked and acted differently. And I'll start with you, Emma.
I feel like with the costumes, it started really early on from like in our fittings, because every single fitting we would talk through like exactly the use and purpose of every single aspect of the costume. Bit by bit, every fitting that I went back for, you got layered and layered into more layers of this material and the weight of it and the corseting, and everything's real. Like, Rob doesn't, he doesn't fake anything, it's all real. So, like, they were hard to be in. And I think it also kind of changed your attitude to everything on set. Like, everyone got in and was focused because you're in these really intense, like even Aaron, he was in like a male corset. And it changes how you can't just like lounge around. You can't, lounge around on set.
I remember trying to like take a mini nap in my bonnet.
It's so hard.
There's a scene where I'm wearing this like huge bonnet, and it was like, and then I have a wig as well, and it was like tacked into my hair, like into the wig. And so I couldn't remove the bonnet like at any point throughout the day. And I remember trying to take like a little cat nap in my trailer. And I was
you basically just have to lean against things.
Yeah, you're
like
kind of
this.
leaning on things. Yeah,
and that kind of seeps into every single part. You can't really ever get out the character.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked that way. You guys looked so committed in everything that y'all were doing. Everybody from the gentleman. I just have to ask this: what was scarier, the trained rats or Bill in his costumes? Because equally terrifying.
And we're gonna have different answers.
Yeah, you'd probably say Bill.
I'd probably say Bill, because I feel like I had to get more up close and personal with Count Orlok, and I had to get more up close and personal with the rats.
I feel for you on both of those.
Yeah.
What did you say when you saw him, just real quick?
I was like, you're so scary. Oh my god.
It is insane.
This creature is a force more powerful than evil.
First of all, congratulations on the film. You're both brilliant in it. I'm actually going to start with you, Willem, because I feel your character, it's one that we've seen before, but the one thing that's really different about this one is your partnership with Lily and how you two really play off each other. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about working with her and how y'all sort of developed that sort of tennis match between you.
Well, first, she's wonderful in the movie. Really an incredible performance, I think. You can't talk about her without shouting that out from the rooftops. This character is, some people say he's a Van Helsing type of character, but for me, he's really a new character. And the thing that's special about him is he's the one that sees her, really understands what she's going through. And there's something beautiful to have that complicity with her, that kind of understanding with her. He is also an outsider, and he's been ostracized, and he appreciates that to have the light, you have to have the dark, you have to acknowledge the dark, and everyone else is in very deep denial. So he's trying to connect the dots. He's trying to encourage the Ellen character to go on her way, and not seeing it as an illness, but seeing it as something necessary and part of the wheel that turns,
Yeah. On the other side, your character, Nick, it's kind of the opposite. He is just trying to will her into being better and maybe not succumb to the darkness, as we hope that she will in this one. But for you, the thing I think that's the most hard part that you have to do in this film is you just have to be scared, like, so much. Like, you have to look terrified and, like, totally committed in that. Was it the rats? Did it make it easy just staring at Bill make it easy? Because, like, that is a hard thing, I think, to look that terrified.
I'm not really sure. I think I just trust Robert wholeheartedly. So if he said, be more scared, I would try and be more scared. But yeah, Thomas is sadly like the complete opposite of Unfriends in many ways. He's in denial. I don't think he's experienced darkness within himself or within the world at all. And because of maybe the times or because of his inability to connect to Ellen and understand her, that's kind of what sets them off in this trajectory of doom, I suppose. Because I think if he could understand and connect with her in a way and at least let her express without him sweeping it under the carpet, then their relationship and maybe the story would have ended up being different.
Yeah, I mean, you both are talking about Robert. This is now your third collaboration. Nick, I'll start with you, and then I'll bring it to you, Willem.
Sure.
What is it very unique to a Robert Edgar set? Both of you have worked with brilliant directors prior to this, but I do feel there's just like a precision and a meticulousness to his filmmaking that you don't often see.
He's very inspiring in every step of filmmaking. The scripts he writes are incredibly detailed and authentic in the dialogue and how he describes, you know, the world that you're entering, and then how he works with every single person on set, from, you know, the costumes and the set design to Jaron, his DP, and the cast. Everything is thought through and led with such dedication and attention to detail that you enter into his world, and it's a magical place to be, because as a performer it feels very authentic and rooted in so much history and authenticity and truth, so that, you know, a lot of the harder work of creating the world and believing in it is done for you, and then he's just unwavering in telling the story to the best of everyone's ability. So everyone is incredibly dedicated to perform for him.
Yeah, and then you coming across 3 different films. Was there anything different from the first time you worked with him to now, or does it stay pretty much?
Just further along in his path. The same guy, maybe a little bit, more mature. And when you make films, you always have to make decisions. You know, you always have to weigh things. Sometimes you have to, it's problem solving. You have an idea, then you try to realize that idea, and sometimes there are obstacles in the way. How much do you embrace those obstacles? How much do you go around them? How much do you blow them up? You know? And I think that's where you feel, you know, the practice and the maturization of him as a filmmaker. But same guy. And it has so much to do with, he's a believer, you know, he's a guy that studies, he's a guy that's curious, you know, he really lives in a kind of wonder. He's not bound by this world. In fact, he takes these stories and they're relevant to him in a very deep way, and he finds a way to make them relevant to us. And it's easy to enter these worlds. It doesn't feel like a foreign thing. We experience it like the characters experience, thanks to his incredible research, his incredible attention to detail, and his just kind of intelligence.
Yeah.
His intelligence to know how to balance things. It's not a dry thing that he's researched and there's details. That's not just a craft thing. It goes beyond that. He's passionate about it because he feels like history can teach us things, and it does.
Well, I love that. I mean, look, he's crafted what a lot of people are calling one of the best vampire Dracula adaptations that we've ever seen. I mean, it's certified fresh. I don't know if y'all know that. I just went certified fresh.
That sounds good.
5 minutes ago. People are raving about all the performances in it. And it begs the question, you've been in a pretty great vampire adaptation. You've been in a couple too. Do you have a favorite besides this one, obviously, or one of your own? Is there one that you're like, okay, if I had to go cue up a vampire sort of Dracula story, which one would it be?
There's so many good ones,
I know.
because someone during doing press for this, someone told me there's like 170, vampire lore related movies. It's a wide range. I mean, I think of George Romero's Martin, which was a little dirty film, but really, when I saw it as a pretty young man, it was pretty impressive. I like Shadow of a Vampire. That was a wonderful movie, very funny. And then, of course, there's Herzog's, Coppola. There's many beautiful ones.
Do you have a favorite one?
I mean, you just listed a couple of them, but also, I mean, the one thing that I was upset about recently, they showed the original Nosferatu at the Art Theatre near me on Halloween with a live string quartet, and I couldn't go because unfortunately, but that was something that I was really excited by. So hopefully they'll do that again, because I'd like to see it with a live orchestra.
And then I do have to just say this, because you've now done it with both, and I don't think there could be 2 different Draculas, but which one's more terrifying, Nick Cage or Bill? Because I think they're equally terrifying in their own ways.
They are terrifying in very different ways, but I mean, they're both just such incredible actors that to see their different interpretations of the characters, obviously very different feeling and tonally movies, but to watch both of them, it was brilliant, and to be in scenes with them, they're like, Nick's iconic, and Bill truly transforms into this role. So it's like, it was a lot of fun to be in scenes with both of them.
Does evil come from within us or from beyond?
Robert, congratulations on the film. It is really brilliant. And I love the idea that, in a way, this is your first film, rather than now ending up being one after you've made several before. But I'm curious, back when you were thinking about, like, your high school version of Nosferatu to now, is there anything that is still essential that you want to do? And what was the thing that changed?
They're very different. The high school version was very, very expressionist, and it was kind of like doing the Murnau film in the style of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari with a minuscule budget and high school people acting all the roles. But the thing that this is spoiler, is that it ended with Orlok and Ellen in a duet. And that was it's something that I thought I did wrong when I made the play. And when I wrote the screenplay, I didn't do that. And I tried to keep it closer to the Murnau film. But it always was an unsatisfying read for me. And when I was trying to block the scene with Bill and Lily Rose, it was just never working. Like, it always was falling apart. So I invited Marie Gabrielle Roti, who did the choreography with Lily. She also helped choreograph some of the crowd scenes. And she said, why don't you take a look at your idea that you did in your high school play of having it be a duet? And she was right, and somehow that was the only way to end the film in a satisfying way for me.
Wow.
I don't know if it is the right way, but it's the way that worked for me.
Dude, you're fine. I mean, the rave reviews, certified fresh, which I don't know if you know, it just happened like a couple minutes ago. But yeah, no, people are really, I think, responding to the work. And I think it's because even though this is a story that feels familiar, I mean, how many Dracula stories have there been in the past? And even within the Nosferatu framing, there's been a few. But this one, going through the perspective of Ellen, I think really sets it apart. And I know from seeing all of your films, nothing is done just by choice. It was like something that you came to. So how did you come to the decision that Ellen had to be the window through this story?
I mean, that was the reason for actually even making the film, because like Murnau had the sensitivity to end with Ellen. By the final act, she emerges as the heroine. But the realization, came from things to do with the character. But if I can be a little more efficient and just say, I realized that if it was through her eyes, you have the ability, potentially, for the story to be more emotionally and psychologically complex. Yeah. It's not an adventure story about a real estate agent. You can really heighten the gothic romance, the obsession, the love triangle, and the film can just be much richer, potentially, if it's through the female protagonist.
And it is. And I would say that, what Emma, what they're doing, everything that Nick is doing, and obviously Bill, even Aaron in his role, the cast, it's a
tremendous cast.
And I know you've worked with a lot of them before, and some of them are for the first time, so I'm curious, who was the most surprising casting for you, and who was somebody who early in the script you knew you wanted and then were able to bring it in?
Surprising, I don't know, but I'm just so happy and honored that Aaron Taylor Johnson and Emma Corrin were willing to take on these tertiary roles, because they're also super important roles. And if we don't see that family collapse and we aren't invested in them and we aren't moved by it, then it's not going to work. And so to have actors of their stature play those smaller roles was awesome, and they just committed like 110% to them. Bill Skarsgård is someone who I've wanted to work with for a long time, and 8 or 9 years ago, he was originally cast as Nicholas Holt's part.
Wow.
He still looks like he could play the romantic lead. It's been so weird to do press with him and spend all this time with him, looking like he's in his 30s, but he looks like he's like 20 years old. Yep. But he's playing a dead 55-year-old in this movie. It's wild.
And quite well. Terrifying. Simply so disturbing. Really love you for that one. How did you come up with the design? I know that's a lot of conversations with your heads of department, but that's a very particular...
No, I mean, like, it's a lot of conversations to make it the best that it can be, but basically, because vampires are pretty much no longer scary, thanks to the culmination of the cinematic vampires' evolution into Edward Cullen.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rob, your former leading man, had a lot to do with that one, too.
He did, yeah. So I went back to the folklore, that from the time when people actually believed in vampires and were afraid of them because they thought they were real. And those early folk vampires, they look like putrid corpses. So the question then became, what does a dead Transylvanian nobleman look like? And you start looking at portraits, and all of a sudden you have facial features, you have Hungarian costume with incredibly long sleeves. You have certain hairstyles, and there you go. But then yes, Linda Muir, the costume designer, David White, the prosthetics designer, they bring so much more than my imagination can conjure alone. That's the beauty of collaboration. But that was the more than the seed was planted when I did the research.
Research, I know, is a huge part of your process as a filmmaker, and your sort of like incessant curiosity about especially things from the past. Is this sacrilegious to ask this, but is there ever a contemporary thing that interests you? Are you always looking past? Would you ever make a contemporary Robert Eggers film? I'm curious.
I just like the idea of having to photograph a car is makes me ill, and the idea of photographing a cell phone is just death.
I figured.
And to make a contemporary story, you have to like photograph a cell phone. It's just how life is. So no.
Never. That's fine. I'm totally fine with that. I just had to ask it. And so the ceiling is what? Early 19th century, let's say?
I don't know. I might go potentially to 1950, but before World War II is more inviting for my imagination.
Okay, you know what? I'm interested in that. I want to see that vibe. Also, I would love to just go to ancient Egypt. Wherever you want to go next, we would be kind of happy to see you go there. Which brings me to my final question, which is, I know you're so much about your research. What is the most surprising place that you found inspiration for this story?
There might be even more surprising, but Mel Brooks' Dracula Dead and Loving It was actually a very helpful thing because that film shows you this is all the stupid shit about the Dracula story. This is all the stuff that never works and the stuff that's ludicrous. So that was actually very helpful. Obviously, given my interests and my taste, it's not surprising that everyone in the Transylvanian village speaks Romanian and Romani because that's the languages that they speak. But in this version, like everyone's not saying, "Don't go to the castle, don't go to the castle, don't go to the castle," and he says, "I'm going to go to the castle, thank you." Like he doesn't know what they're saying.
Yeah.
He can't understand their warnings. And that Dracula Dead and Loving had highlighted that is a problem. With these other tellings of the story.